Have you noticed you're waking up at 2:17 a.m. again? Standing in the bathroom, waiting, and wondering why your body doesn't respond like it used to. The slower stream, the pressure, that feeling you didn't quite empty completely. Most men over 50 are told, this is just aging, it's normal. But here's what I tell my patients. Normal doesn't mean inevitable. And what surprises many men is that the prostate doesn't decline randomly. It responds to something very specific. And most men overlook it every single day. In fact, the #1 prostate-supporting fruit may already be sitting in your kitchen. But timing and preparation matter more than you think. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you value straightforward guidance for men over 50, consider subscribing. But here's what most men don't realize. Those frustrating bathroom trips aren't random, and they're not just part of getting older. They're signals. Signals that your prostate is responding to changes happening quietly inside your body. Maybe you've noticed you're waking up 2 or 3 times a night. You shuffle down the hallway half asleep, stand there waiting for the stream to start. And when it finally does, it's weaker than it used to be. There's hesitation, a stop and start flow. Sometimes urgency hits during the day when you're out running errands. And even after you finish, it feels like you didn't quite empty completely. Then there's the part most men don't talk about. Interrupted sleep leaves you drained the next morning. Fatigue affects your focus. And slowly, almost subtly, your sexual confidence takes a hit. You start wondering if something bigger is going on. In many cases, what's happening is something called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. That's simply a medical term for enlargement of the prostate gland. Benign means it's not cancer. Hyperplasia means growth. As men age, prostate cells multiply. The gland gradually expands and begins pressing against the urethra, the small tube that carries urine out of your body. That pressure is what weakens the stream and creates that frustrating sense of incomplete emptying. But here's where we need to go deeper. The enlargement itself isn't the root cause. It's the result of an internal environment that has shifted over time. After 50, your hormonal balance begins to change. Testosterone levels slowly decline. But even more important than total testosterone is what happens to the testosterone you still produce. A portion of it converts into a more potent hormone called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. DHT has a stronger effect on prostate tissue. When levels of DHT accumulate within the gland, they can stimulate growth signals that encourage enlargement. At the same time, another process is quietly unfolding. Chronic low-grade inflammation, not the kind of inflammation you feel when you sprain an ankle. This is subtle cellular inflammation that builds over years. Poor sleep, excess abdominal fat, high sugar diets, stress, all of these create inflammatory chemicals in the bloodstream. The prostate is particularly sensitive to this inflammatory environment. Layer on top of that oxidative stress. Every day your body produces unstable molecules called free radicals. In a healthy system, antioxidants neutralize them. But when oxidative stress outweighs antioxidant defenses, tissues become irritated and damaged at a microscopic level. Prostate cells exposed to oxidative stress are more likely to signal for growth and structural change. And then there's circulation. The prostate relies on healthy pelvic blood flow to deliver oxygen and nutrients while clearing metabolic waste. As men age, blood vessels can stiffen. Nitric oxide production, the molecule responsible for relaxing arteries, declines. Reduced pelvic blood flow doesn't just affect erections, it affects prostate tissue health as well. So when you put all of this together, hormonal shifts toward DHT, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and reduced circulation, the prostate begins to adapt to that environment. It thickens, it enlarges, it becomes more reactive. Aging alone isn't the cause. It's the internal environment that aging often creates. And here's the empowering part. Environments can change. The prostate responds directly to inflammation levels. It responds to insulin spikes from high sugar meals. It responds to circulation quality. It responds to nutrient availability. Certain compounds in food can actually influence oxidative stress and even modulate DHT signaling pathways at the cellular level. I've seen men assume their symptoms are permanent when in reality their bodies were simply reacting to a long-standing pattern. When we shift that pattern, even gradually, symptoms often improve. Nighttime awakenings decrease, flow becomes steadier, sleep deepens, confidence returns. But here's the mistake most men make. They either, what's really happening to your prostate, ignore food entirely, believing diet has nothing to do with prostate health, or they hear about a superfood and consume it in a way that does absolutely nothing for their biology. They'll drink a sugar-loaded beverage labeled as healthy, or they'll take a random supplement without understanding absorption or dosage, or they'll try something for 2 weeks and quit. The truth is, certain nutrients directly influence oxidative stress, inflammatory signaling, and even the enzymatic pathways involved in DHT activity. But they have to be used correctly. There is one fruit uniquely rich in compounds that target these exact mechanisms: inflammation, oxidative stress, circulation in a way that few other foods can. And it's not exotic, it's not rare, it's not something you need to order from across the world. It may already be in your kitchen, but the form matters, the timing matters, and the preparation matters more than most men realize. And that brings us to the fruit I recommend most often to men over 50, but not in the way you think. But here's what most men don't realize. The fruit I'm about to name isn't exotic, expensive, or complicated. It's been sitting in grocery stores for decades, yet very few men understand what it actually does inside the aging prostate. The fruit is pomegranate. Pomegranate is one of the most potent anti-inflammatory and circulation-enhancing fruits for the aging prostate. Now let me explain why that matters. Pomegranate is rich in compounds called punicins. These are powerful polyphenols, plant-based antioxidants that are exceptionally effective at neutralizing oxidative stress. Remember what we talked about earlier? Oxidative stress irritates prostate tissue. It fuels low-grade inflammation. It encourages cellular signaling that can promote enlargement over time. Puniclins directly combat that process. They reduce oxidative stress within tissues, including prostate tissue. When oxidative stress drops, inflammatory signaling often drops with it. And when inflammation decreases, the prostate becomes less reactive. But that's only part of the story. Pomegranate also supports nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is the molecule responsible for relaxing and widening blood vessels. As men age, nitric oxide levels decline. Blood vessels stiffen, circulation weakens, especially in smaller pelvic arteries. When nitric oxide production improves, blood flow improves, and better blood flow means better oxygen delivery to the prostate and surrounding tissues. It means less congestion, less stagnation, less pressure inside the gland. Improved pelvic circulation doesn't just influence urination, it also supports erectile function. The same nitric oxide pathway that allows for stronger erections also supports healthy prostate perfusion. These systems are connected more than most men realize, and when circulation improves, something interesting often happens. Nighttime symptoms begin to ease. Reduced inflammation combined with better tissue oxygenation can decrease the irritation signals that trigger urgency. Less nighttime inflammation often means fewer awakenings. Better sleep follows, and when sleep improves, inflammation drops even further. It becomes a positive cycle instead of a negative one. There's also emerging research suggesting that pomegranate's polyphenols may influence PSA velocity, the rate at which PSA levels rise over time. Now, I want to be careful here. This is not a cure. It's not a treatment for prostate cancer. But some studies suggest that antioxidant-rich compounds like those found in pomegranate may help slow PSA progression in certain contexts. That tells us something important. This fruit interacts directly with prostate biology. Another key point is inflammation's relationship to hormones. Chronic inflammation can increase tissue sensitivity to DHT, the potent form of testosterone we discussed earlier. It's not always about having too much DHT. It's often about how sensitive the tissue becomes in an inflamed environment. When you calm inflammation, you may indirectly calm that hormonal reactivity. In my clinical experience, I've seen men reduce nighttime bathroom trips when their inflammatory markers improve. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually. And pomegranate, when used properly, can be part of that shift. Now we need to talk about form, because this is where most men unknowingly sabotage the benefit. There are 3 primary ways men consume this fruit. First, fresh pomegranate arrows. These are the small ruby red seeds inside the fruit. They contain fiber along with the beneficial polyphenols. The fiber slows sugar absorption, preventing sharp insulin spikes. This form is closest to how nature intended it. Second, unsweetened pomegranate juice. This can be beneficial if it's truly unsweetened and not blended with other high sugar juices. However, juice removes the fiber. Without fiber, natural sugars absorb more quickly. For men with the power of pomegranate insulin resistance or elevated blood sugar, this matters. Third, standardized extract. A high-quality pomegranate extract provides concentrated punicins in a controlled dose without the sugar load. For some men, especially those monitoring carbohydrate intake, this can be a practical option. But here's where most men go wrong. They grab a bottle labeled pomegranate blend or antioxidant cocktail from the store. It tastes sweet, it feels healthy, but it's loaded with added sugars or mixed with other juices that spike insulin levels, and insulin spikes fuel inflammation. So, instead of calming the prostate environment, they're quietly aggravating it. They think they're being therapeutic, but biologically, they're working against themselves. The fruit itself isn't the problem. The form and context are. Pomegranate has powerful properties: ponicagens, polyphenols, nitric oxide support, anti-inflammatory effects, but it must be used intelligently. It must fit into a broader strategy that stabilizes blood sugar and reduces systemic inflammation. And that brings us to something even more important than the fruit itself. Because the biggest mistake isn't choosing the wrong fruit, it's misunderstanding when and how to use it. Now here's the mistake most men make. They think if something is healthy, more must be better. So, they add pomegranate randomly to their day and expect dramatic results. But prostate biology doesn't work that way. It's not about eating more. It's about timing, absorption, and the metabolic context surrounding it. Let's talk about timing, with meals first. When you consume any fruit, even one as powerful as pomegranate, your body responds with an insulin release. That's normal. But when pomegranate is combined with a high-sugar breakfast, pastries, sweetened yogurt, or refined carbohydrates, insulin levels spike higher than necessary. Elevated insulin promotes inflammation, and inflammation is exactly what we're trying to calm inside the prostate. So, if you're drinking a glass of pomegranate juice alongside pancakes drenched in syrup, you're biologically sending mixed signals to your body. Now, let's talk about evening consumption. Many men assume nighttime is a convenient time for juice or fruit. But drinking pomegranate juice late in the evening may increase nighttime urination for some men. Not because the fruit is harmful, but because fluid intake close to bedtime increases bladder filling. Add mild natural sugars, stimulating metabolic activity, and you may find yourself back in the hallway at 2:17 a.m. This is why, for most men over 50, the best time to consume pomegranate is earlier in the day, morning, or early afternoon. Your body metabolizes nutrients more efficiently. Circulation benefits are active during daytime movement, and you avoid unnecessary fluid load before bed. Moderation matters as well. A moderate serving of fresh pomegranate arils, about half a cup, is sufficient. You don't need a giant bowl. With unsweetened pomegranate juice, a small glass around 4 ounces is enough. More is not better. Megadosing doesn't accelerate healing. It often stresses metabolism. Consistency over time beats intensity for a week. Now, let's revisit why whole fruit fiber matters. Fiber slows the absorption of natural sugars, preventing rapid glucose spikes. Stable blood sugar reduces inflammatory cascades, and stable inflammation means calmer prostate signaling. That's one reason fresh pomegranate arils are often my preferred form for men without blood sugar concerns. For men monitoring carbohydrate intake more closely, a standardized extract may be appropriate. A standardized extract provides a consistent concentration of punicins without the sugar load. This allows you to receive the antioxidant and nitric oxide benefits without influencing insulin significantly. However, this is where medical guidance matters. Pomegranate, particularly in extract form, may interact with certain medications, including blood thinners, because it can influence platelet activity and circulation pathways. It's important to discuss supplementation with your physician if you're taking anticoagulants. Now let me introduce something critical: synergy. Pomegranate works best when inflammation is being reduced elsewhere in your life. If abdominal fat is high, inflammatory cytokines are elevated. If sleep is poor, cortisol rises and inflammatory markers climb. If alcohol intake is frequent, liver metabolism shifts and systemic inflammation increases. In that environment, one fruit, no matter how powerful, cannot overcome a daily pattern of metabolic stress. Now, here's the mistake most men make. They focus on one superfood, but ignore sleep quality. They stay up late watching television, fragmenting deep sleep cycles. They ignore abdominal fat accumulation, not realizing visceral fat produces aromatase, an enzyme that converts timing and dosage mistakes testosterone into estrogen. Increased aromatase activity alters hormonal balance. Hormonal imbalance increases prostate tissue sensitivity. They ignore alcohol intake. Even moderate nightly drinking can increase inflammation and disrupt REM sleep. They drink large amounts of fluid in the evening, then wonder why they're up 3 times overnight, and then they say, "I tried pomegranate. It didn't work." But Prostate health is systemic. It responds to the entire metabolic environment. Visceral fat increases aromatase activity. Higher aromatase shifts testosterone toward estrogen conversion. That hormonal shift doesn't directly cause enlargement, but it can worsen tissue reactivity when combined with DHT and inflammation. The prostate becomes more sensitive in that context. When you improve sleep, reduce abdominal fat, moderate alcohol, and adjust hydration timing, that's when pomegranate becomes a powerful ally instead of a lone soldier. Because timing isn't just about when you eat the fruit. It's about when your body is primed to respond earlier in the day. Moderate serving, consistent use, integrated into a lower inflammation lifestyle. This is how physiology changes. But that's not all. There's something even more powerful than adding one fruit, and it determines whether your prostate improves or continues to swell. But here's what most men don't realize. Your prostate doesn't operate in isolation. It's not a separate part of you that suddenly decides to misbehave. It's deeply connected to your circulation, your hormones, your metabolism, your sleep, your entire vitality. As a man, the prostate is a circulation-dependent organ. It relies on steady, healthy blood flow to deliver oxygen and nutrients and to remove inflammatory byproducts. When circulation declines, tissue health declines with it. As we age, nitric oxide production naturally drops. Nitric oxide is the molecule that tells your blood vessels to relax and widen. When nitric oxide is low, arteries stiffen. This is called endothelial dysfunction, a gradual loss of flexibility in the inner lining of your blood vessels. Aging arteries become less responsive. Blood flow to smaller pelvic vessels decreases. Most men associate circulation problems only with erectile changes, but the same vascular network that supports erections also nourishes the prostate. Reduced pelvic circulation means more congestion, more stagnation, less oxygen delivery. Over time, that environment promotes irritation and tissue reactivity. Now, let's talk about testosterone because there's a lot of confusion here. Low testosterone does not directly cause the prostate to enlarge. That's an important distinction. However, hormonal imbalance can influence how sensitive prostate tissue becomes to growth signals. When testosterone declines and body fat increases, aromatase activity rises. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. That shift can alter tissue responsiveness and inflammatory signaling. There's also a common myth that testosterone replacement therapy automatically worsens benign prostatic hyperplasia. The reality is more nuanced. In properly monitored settings, testosterone therapy does not necessarily cause prostate enlargement. The relationship between testosterone and prostate growth is complex and influenced by DHT levels, inflammation, and overall metabolic health. It's not as simple as more testosterone equals bigger prostate. What often drives prostate irritation isn't testosterone itself. It's chronic inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic syndrome, which includes abdominal, the bigger picture for men, over 50 obesity, elevated blood sugar, high triglycerides, and hypertension creates a pro-inflammatory internal environment. Insulin resistance increases circulating insulin levels. Elevated insulin promotes inflammatory cascades. Chronic inflammation sensitizes prostate tissue to DHT and growth signals. Now layer in poor sleep. Sleep fragmentation, whether from stress, insomnia, or sleep apnea, increases inflammatory markers in the bloodstream. Even one night of disrupted sleep can raise inflammatory cytokines. Over months and years, poor sleep becomes a silent amplifier of prostate irritation. Men with untreated sleep apnea often experience elevated nighttime urination, not only because of bladder signaling changes, but because inflammation and hormonal stress responses are heightened throughout the night. This is why prostate health is not just a urinary issue. It's a systemic vitality issue. Now bring pomegranate back into the picture. Pomegranate supports nitric oxide production. It enhances endothelial function. It provides antioxidant protection that reduces oxidative stress. These actions directly support circulation and calm inflammatory signaling. But it's a piece of a system. If you want the prostate to respond, you must improve the environment it lives in. That means walking after meals. A simple 10 to 15-minute walk improves glucose metabolism and reduces insulin spikes. Lower insulin means lower inflammatory signaling. It means resistance training 2 to 3 times per week. Muscle tissue improves insulin sensitivity. Increased muscle mass supports healthier testosterone balance. Even modest strength training can shift metabolic markers in powerful ways. It means proper hydration earlier in the day. Drink more fluids in the morning and afternoon, tapering in the evening. Reducing evening fluid intake decreases nighttime bladder stimulation. It means moderating alcohol, especially at night. Alcohol disrupts deep sleep cycles and increases inflammatory load. These are not extreme measures. They're foundational shifts. And here's the deeper message I want you to hear. This isn't about aging quietly. It's not about accepting decline with resignation. It's about reclaiming control of the environment inside your body. When you improve circulation, you improve tissue oxygenation. When you stabilize insulin, you reduce inflammatory cascades. When you restore sleep, you lower stress hormones. When you support nitric oxide, you enhance pelvic blood flow. The prostate responds to these changes. I've seen men in their late 60s and early 70s regain stronger urinary flow, sleep through the night more consistently, and report improved sexual confidence. Not because of a miracle pill, but because they addressed circulation, inflammation, and metabolic health together. Pomegranate plays a role in that system. It supports nitric oxide. It provides antioxidant protection. It helps calm inflammatory signals, but it works best when the entire system begins to shift. This is not about fighting your body. It's about supporting it intelligently. And when you combine circulation support with the right fruit at the right time, that's when the body begins to respond. But here's what I need you to understand at a deeper level. You're not broken. I've treated thousands of men over 50 who walked into my office convinced their best years were behind them. Men who thought waking up exhausted, anxious, about bathroom trips, and quietly worried about their performance was simply the price of aging. They believed this was just how it goes. It's not. The male body is remarkably responsive when you reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and support hormonal balance. I've watched it happen over and over again. Men who hadn't slept through the night in years begin sleeping 5, 6, even 7 uninterrupted hours. Men who were frustrated by a weak stream notice steady improvement. Men who had lost confidence in intimacy start to feel like themselves again. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. And here's the empowering truth. It doesn't require extreme measures. It doesn't require punishing workouts or impossible diets. It requires awareness, consistency, and small, intelligent shifts applied daily. Your prostate is not your enemy. It's not betraying you. It's responding to the signals it receives from your lifestyle, your circulation, your sleep, your hormones. When you change the signals, you change the outcome. And that's powerful. If you found this valuable, join our community and subscribe so you never miss future guidance designed specifically for men over 50 who want real answers, not noise. Here's what I want you to remember. The #1 prostate-supporting fruit we discussed is pomegranate. Not sugary blends, not random supplements pulled off a shelf. Not guesswork based on marketing, proper form, proper timing used as part of a bigger strategy that supports circulation, lowers inflammation, and stabilizes hormones. And that unresolved detail from the very beginning, those 2 17 a.m. bathroom trips. It was never just about the prostate itself. It was about inflammation and declining circulation quietly driving those symptoms behind the scenes. When you address the cause, the symptoms begin to settle. You deserve confidence. You deserve steady energy. You deserve deep restorative sleep. Take care of your health because you are worth it.